Hi, and welcome to another episode of Startup Stories, where I interview the best and brightest startup founders and experts so you can be ahead of the curve with your own startup venture. This episode brings us together with Manuel Vinta, co-founder at Oxygen at Work, a startup that aims to improve air quality in office spaces using natural plants in order to improve the health of employees and reduce the energy consumption of the buildings. In this episode, we started off by looking at the startup's creation story and how Manuel and his team got their first customer without really having a product ready. Manuel dives deeper into what the first version of the product looked like and compares it to what it looks like today, explaining how Oxygen at Work can differentiate itself from its competition using data. Manuel also explained how his team tackles the challenge of selling a fuzzy and long-term vision of healthier employees to his customers, as well as his worst mistake and biggest achievement, launching Oxygen at Work and growing it to what it is today. Having Manuel on the show was a delight, and I'm super excited to share this founder chat with all of you today. Enjoy! Welcome, Manuel. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for taking the time. I really appreciate it. Could we jump right in and by you telling us a little bit who you are and what Oxygen at Work is doing? What problem is it solving?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you, Daniel, for having us. So, my name is Manuel Winter. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Oxygen at Work. So basically, what we do, we spend 90% of our time we spend indoors, and most of the waking hours we actually spend at the office. If you watch the news lately, already for a while now, obviously, we heard a lot about climate change and rising CO2 levels and especially outdoor pollution, right? But we do tend to forget that indoor pollution is a very big problem as well, and it was a little bit ignored in the recent years. So this is why we created Oxygen at Work. Basically, what we do is we use natural plants and combine it with modern technologies such as IoT and big data in order to improve the indoor air quality, mainly in office spaces. This improves the physical health of the employees as well as the mental health by reducing stress levels and increasing productivity. But we do take it also one step further by integrating the plant into a smart building in order to reduce heating and ventilation systems, through which we can save up to 25% of the energy consumption of a building. So basically, in a nutshell, what we do, we digitalize plants in order to improve indoor air quality and integrate it into smart building systems.
That sounds like, well, it makes a lot of sense. How did you how did you test that indoor pollution? How did you find out that indoor pollution was such a big problem? I mean, that's not something, you discuss with people every day.
No, not at all. Well, first of all, me and my founders, we spent a lot of time before in offices, and we experienced it ourselves. We didn't like the environment too much. We suffered from some symptoms that are caused by air pollution, and then we also stumbled upon a video on YouTube that was explaining the problem of indoor pollution and how plants can actually improve the air quality indoors. This is basically how we came up with the idea.
Okay. What were those symptoms that you had? I mean, I could imagine there's a lot of people who have those symptoms but don't know don't really realize it. So what are some could you say that there are some symptoms from indoor air pollution that people maybe don't see?
Yeah, the most common one is obviously headache. This is what so many people experience at the office. But it's not always easy to say that it's due to air pollution. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But headache is definitely the main symptom. But then also if you become tired in the afternoon, obviously it can be if you went out the evening before and partied hard. But if you experience it regularly, that it's usually due to high CO2 levels, which basically through which the ratio between oxygen and CO2 is in an imbalance. So you get less oxygen to your brain and to your blood, which is why let's say the whole system goes down and you become tired. But there are also other symptoms. There are many symptoms like itching eyes or itching throat that are caused by indoor air pollution.
Yeah, I could imagine there's a lot of people who have that. Me, for example, probably have experienced it. Okay, so you saw that video and you thought, okay, there's something there. What were the next steps that you took?
So the next step, we were very pragmatic. We wanted to, before let's say wasting some time on doing some paper-based research or something else. We just wanted to test the market. So what we did before even having a name for that project or anything else, we called up 10 big companies in Switzerland, talked to HR, and tried to sell the solution and see whether we find some interest. And of those 10 companies, 3 wanted to meet, which was great feedback. I mean, like this, we noticed that there is some interest and there seems to be some need. And then we had 3 meetings. We had to come up with a name, create a website, an email address in order to confirm the meetings, come up with some kind of presentation in order to have a proper meeting. Obviously, nothing came out of these 3 meetings, and we didn't sign a deal. But it was a great way in order to test the market to see whether there is some interest and a need in the market, and to get immediate feedback. This is and this is what we've been doing since then. In order to test something and get some feedback, the best way is selling it, because this is the most honest feedback you will get. If someone is interested in it, you know you are onto something. If someone is even willing to buy it, that's the perfect feedback you can get. And if a potential client that doesn't know that you're testing something, but has actually thinks about buying something or not, will give you feedback. That's exactly what you need.
Yeah, for sure. I love the fast approach to how you did it. How did you get that first customer though? What's the story behind it? What was the evolution from those 3 meetings to the first customer?
So we just kept on calling or cold emailing companies, trying to find some people that would be interested in. And then at some point, someone actually wanted to buy the service. It was really just hustling to going into all kinds of directions, contacting people at corporates, till someone agreed to buy our solution. Was no magic. There was no magic behind it. Just hard work.
I was wondering while checking out your service, how do you sell someone? Or for me, it seems that the benefits, although they're really important, might be a bit, they're long term. Health is a long term thing. You can't put a plant in a room and then the next day everyone's 100% happier, right? So it's kind of a long term. It's like a fuzzy thing. How do you measure if someone's healthier? So I imagine that to be a challenge. I don't know. Was that a challenge? And how did you sell companies your service? How did you manage to kind of get them to understand the value?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is the daily challenge we face. I would say, I mean, there's one big thing, or 2 big things that we can benefit from, which is one is that plants are not something new in the office space, right? We have plants since about 50, 60 years inside the office, and it became kind of a standard equipment, or standard decoration. for an office space. So we don't have to convince them that this could be like part of an office. It's not something completely new, right? We have to
Mm.
convince them that our approach is the right approach, to not have plants as decoration, but really use it to its full potential in order to improve the air quality, improve the health, and reduce the energy consumption. But you're right. I mean, it's very hard to convince someone about the future, a future benefit and a long term benefit. I mean, we definitely benefit from the trends nowadays of employers emphasizing a lot that they're good companies, good employers, that they support the health of and well-being of their employees, that they're all about sustainability and so on. So this definitely this definitely helps us. But in the end, if you sell something, it all comes down to the dollar, or the Swiss franc. It's if you want to sell something, either the company has to benefit on the upside of increasing revenue, or saving cost. This is the hard truth in business to business sales. So we definitely have to prove that the health improves, that the air quality improves, that sick leave absences go down, which is very costly for companies, and that the energy consumption of the building is going down. This is something that you will see immediately, right? If you lower the ventilation systems or lower heating systems, the next day you will have lower costs.
Mm.
So in the end, you have to show the upside potential and the cost cutting potential in order to convince someone that the dollar spent or the franc spent is worth it.
Yeah. How much time do you need to have your plants in an office for you to be able to show, first interesting results to the company?
I mean, the projects that we do are long-term projects. It's you don't get plans and you take them away after two weeks again. So it's anyways long-term projects. The first results we can show after a few weeks through the measurements that we do. By measuring the air quality, we can show quite quickly how the air quality improved and what the status of the air quality is now. In order to make the jump from there to the health of the employees, let's say, it's either you do a logical step by saying, okay, if there are less pollutants in the air, most probably your employees will be healthier.
Right.
But to show it, obviously, it's important to show it as well in the numbers. But this is, as you said, a longer term project, because obviously air quality is not the only influencer on employee health. So for that we need more time. What we also do is track the mental health of the employees, which is not that easy to track. And we do it with surveys to track the subjective perception of the employees,
Mhm.
which gives a good indication of their mental health. And this can be done as well after a few weeks, while the impact or the effect of the plans, comparing the before and after, is still felt by the employees.
Before I jump into the more about the product, I was wondering how you identified your ideal customer in the beginning. You mentioned, yeah, for companies, it's nothing new having plants in the office. So I was thinking, or I was wondering if you're mostly targeting companies that already have plants, but as a decoration, and then you come in and say, you already have plants, but now you could upgrade that and improve ABC, or is there, how are you targeting companies? What are the ones that work best, if there's any pattern there at all?
Yeah, I mean, by now we figured it out, or hope we figured it out, what our ideal client or target customer is. But we definitely don't encourage companies to get rid of their existing plants. That would be a shame and a waste to get rid of them. If we approach someone and he has already plenty of plants inside the office space, we congratulate them for a great office and we move on. So we definitely target companies that don't have plans yet, and sometimes they have planned to have some plans, sometimes they don't even have it planned yet. And I mean, in the beginning, we just reached out to tons of different companies, trying to figure out which one is the ideal company, which one is the ideal person to speak to, which is obviously very important as well in B2B sales. By now, after more than 2 years, it took us a while to figure it out, to get enough data points to really figure out which one is our ideal client. What's most important for us is a certain trigger event. That's what we identified as being the most important success factor in B2B sales. So there are some trigger events that trigger an interest or a need in our solution. So let's say there is an existing office where all the employees complain about the air quality, where everyone says, "Oh, it's too dry in here," or "I have headache," or "We have stuffy air here." So then, obviously, the company has to do something, assuming that they care about the employees. But that's a given mostly nowadays. So that would be a trigger event, which is when our solution becomes interesting. So now after a while, we defined the trigger events, which are crucial for us in order to increase the success rate of our leads or our sales process. And we try to only target companies that experienced such a trigger event.
That sounds easy, but I would imagine it's difficult to know if a company has had that trigger event. How do you see or find out?
Yeah, that's the magic, or what we feel is the magic of our sales process, to really know where a company experienced such a trigger event. So first of all, what we did after approaching tons of companies and closing some deals, we went and analyzed the deals and saw, okay, each of those had some kind of trigger event. Actually, we never closed a deal so far with a company that didn't have a trigger event. So like this, we identified the various trigger events. Yeah, then it was and it still is very hard to find companies that have those trigger events. And the way we try to do it is through an indirect information channel, let's say, where we try to identify people, organizations, companies, or other information sources that would know where or which company experienced such a trigger event.
Cool. Well, this is very interesting, the things you find out and how you're approaching it right now. If we can dive into the product a little bit. So you started selling without having a product, which is a very smart way to do it, because you don't spend any money on building something maybe nobody wants. What did the first product look like? What did you sell in the beginning? Maybe we can do that. And then what did the first product actually look like? And then maybe we can go into what the product looks like now.
Sure. Well, in the beginning, as I said, we didn't have a product. We had an idea and a story and an idea of a solution, and we're selling it till actually one client wanted to buy it. And then we had to create the product in order to deliver. So in the beginning, it was really very, very basic. So we had the idea, okay, of improving air quality through plants. We were basically selling plants. We didn't want to sell plants, because what we from the beginning on wanted was recurring revenues in order to build up a business and not be dependent on continuously bringing in new deals. So in the beginning, it was really like just analyzing the air quality with a sensor and renting plants, like basically designing the office space with new plants and renting the plants on a monthly basis. And from there on, we continued selling. We got feedback, and from there on, we just started developing the product on the market, basically as part of the sales process. We noticed that by renting the plants, usually those companies also want to get some kind of maintenance service, which also we realized if we rent the plants, that the risk is too high if we let the company maintain the plants for us. So we had to add that part to our solution, and from there on, it just like continued step by step. We realized the importance of the data and the large opportunity that the data that we collect has. So we started developing additional services on top of the data and becoming much more data driven, where basically now the final product is really integrating the effects of the plants and digitalizing the plants and integrating it into the ecosystem of a smart building in order to literally take it out of the office corner, and from its decoration status, and making it part of a smart and energy efficient building.
Very cool. What data are you collecting?
So that's an array of data. It obviously starts with indoor air quality data. We add weather data to it, and some outdoor pollution data, because there is obviously a very high correlation between indoor and outdoor air quality. But then we also have some occupancy data, see how is the office space occupied by the employees, and in future we want to add many more data points, and integrate also the data from the building systems, for example.
Yeah, that's very data driven. That's quite exciting. um, I was wondering what happens if someone else just starts the same. Is the data is that the huge amount of information that you're gathering, is that how you differentiate yourself from a new competitor?
Well, the data obviously keeps us ahead for quite a while. Data just increases exponentially usually, and it's very hard to catch up with data collection of someone that is doing it already for now nearly 2.5 years. And what we always wanted to do, or what we always said from the very beginning, was that we don't want to use just some artificial lab data, but we really want to build our algorithms and our tools based on live data and actual data from offices, which are very dynamic and change all the time. And only like this we can actually create the optimal solution. So this is definitely keeps us on top of the ahead of competition. But in the end, we have to innovate all the time, and there are some further ideas and solutions in the making, which I'm not gonna release just yet. But in the end, what I personally believe, especially, I mean, if you develop hardware, maybe you can get a patent on it. But even hardware, it's just a matter of time till you can copy it. Maybe you do a little tweak, and you can copy it. So if you want to stay ahead, you just have to run faster and grow in order to always stay ahead. This is what I personally believe.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And it's nice that you're showing that there's more to come. So people can check out the website in the future. I was wondering one topic before I jump into a question from the audience,
Mm.
and some final questions. Pricing is a very interesting topic to me, and as you said, it's or as we talked about, it's a long-term project, and it can be hard to quantify, although you appear to be doing so. How do you price your products? What have you found out and learned on the pricing side?
Yeah, well, pricing is, I believe, something you keep figuring out each and every day, and you're never really 100% sure whether you have the right price or not, because it's such a complex topic. First of all, you have just obviously the various costs that you need to cover. Then you have the financial benefits that you're hopefully able to give to your clients. But then there are so many different aspects. Let's think, for example, about sustainability. We are With our solution, we are able to save up to 85 kilogram of CO2 per workspace for a company per year. So this, obviously, by reducing energy, you save some money. But what the financial benefit of each saved kilogram of CO2 to a company is, in terms of PR and communication and so on, is basically impossible to measure. And for some companies, it's more important, and for other companies, it's less important. So, and this in the end plays a huge role in their willingness to pay, which is, in my opinion, the only factor that plays a role. How much are they willing to pay? So, we are obviously still figuring it out a little bit, and but one thing which we are a strong believer in is simplicity in pricing. I believe that, especially for companies, I believe it's also true in consumer products, especially in consumer products, but also for companies. It's the easier you make it for them to calculate their actual costs. Um, the easier it is for them to plan their costs ahead of time, the better your pricing structure is. If it takes you, I mean, our goal is always that we can say on the spot how expensive it will be, which is why we usually have a fixed pricing per workspace per month, including the whole service. So then it's very easy, right? You can just calculate how many workspaces does the client have, or the client just knows himself. Okay, I have 100 workspaces, times the monthly price. It gives him the pricing. So you make it very, very easy, and you lower the boundaries for them. Otherwise, you will end up in huge conversations and discussions on how to tweak the pricing, based on the value that each client sees in the various aspects of your solution.
Yeah, the price does need to make sense, and for that, I mean, simplicity is super important. You kind of want to. Could you say that you want to get him to the decision, yes or no, as fast as possible?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, exactly. You have to make it as simple as possible. Yeah, that's why we chose to have this subscription model basically, which is like, if you want to get your Netflix account and you see it costs 15 francs a month. If you go regularly to the movie theater, you can do your calculation. Or if you buy on demand or whatever, you can do very simply your calculation and see whether it's worth it for you or not. And you know exactly, okay, it's going to cost me this amount each month, which is 0.0 whatever percent of your salary. So you can easily afford it. While if you have super complex pricing, it will take so much longer for someone to decide whether it's worth it or not.
Cool. We got one question from the audience that we're gonna share, and it's about the topic of financing.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is from Bertrand, and he asked, when is the best moment for a company that is built primarily with private funds to look for an investor to finance their growth?
All
So
right.
I assume you started with private funds in the beginning, and I don't know, we didn't cover the topic of your financing yet, but yeah, what can you say about what's your opinion on that question?
Yeah, so I mean, maybe a little bit on the background. We started with private funds, and but only a small amount. As I told you, our story didn't include a lot of investments up front because we were selling before developing a product. And from then on, in the beginning, we financed ourselves through our clients because it was a solution that we could sell quite soon after starting the business, and this is how we financed ourselves for a while. We did do one financing round recently in order to increase the growth, and it's very hard to say actually when is the right moment to finance your growth, because for each company it's different. And I mean, as simple as it sounds, you just have to be ready for growth. If you jump on an opportunity to get some financing, sometimes for some startups it's easy, for some it's harder. Some really get the opportunity to just get some money and get some growth money. But if you just jump on the opportunity before even being ready, whether it's the solution not being ready, whether it's your operations not being ready, whether it's your team not being ready from a skills point of view or from a size perspective, for example, for each company it depends obviously. But if you're not ready and you're raising funds, you will either burn all the money too early and not benefit from it, or if you're smart enough and you realize that you're not ready and you need another half a year or a year, you actually fundraised too early and probably gave up too much of your equity or control in the company. So I believe it's really important to know what are the criteria for your specific business that need to be in place in order to grow and do the next step of growth. It doesn't have to be an expansion to all of Europe or to another continent, but whatever is your next expansion of growth, your next period of growth, that you have to be ready. And by anticipating that, if you know, okay, in 1 or 2 months you will be ready, you can actually start getting the funds. This is what I believe is how you find the right moment to get the investment.
Right. So really having, I mean, you could just make a thought experiment and assume, okay, what if we have, 20 more customers a week, or 1,000 more customers a week, or whatever business you're in. Will our website be able to function? Will our team be able to do the customer support that we want to do, and so on? So totally on the business and product side, I would even add, because I've seen that happen, that you also need to be ready on the customer side, meaning knowing that if you put $1 in to your marketing or your sales, you'll get X amount of customers out. So I hear stories, and I've experienced this myself, getting money, people investing, but the founders or the startup not knowing who the target customer is, and spending way too much on acquiring customers that are not the right fit. I mean, that leads to a situation where you promised your investors something, a growth of a certain percentage or whatever, and you just can't get there. So you can't deliver to your investors.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I mean, the market obviously has to be in place, and you have to perfectly know the market for your next step. Otherwise, you will burn the money as well. I guess there are two types. If you want to categorize it, there are two types of financing that you can get. One is growth financing, as we've been talking now, and the other one is basically getting your company in shape. If you which is either marketing, that you know exactly what are your marketing metrics, which campaigns work and which don't. For us, let's say talking about the example I used before of identifying the right clients. For us, it was crucial to identify those trigger events, and if we needed some money to take some more time to properly identify those trigger events, it would have been much less money than growth money, and b you get the money with a very different target, and you can actually deliver on that target, and then you put your company in shape, and once it's in shape and can actually handle the next stage of growth, then you can get the growth money if you need it. But if you start mixing up the different things, whether you want to need to put some processes and tools and people in place to get your company in shape, with simply growing, and mixing up the stages of your company and mixing up the fundraising that comes with it, then you will end up in a huge mess.
There's a lot of things to consider, but it's a super important topic. All right, so we're jumping into the last segment where I ask a few personal questions about your story. The first thing I'm wondering is what's something you believe you did badly while working on your startup, and maybe you can share an example. This is mainly for, it's very interesting because every startup and every founder has a different story. So having those examples of where someone did a mistake really helps listeners and future founders learn, to avoid those mistakes.
Sure. I mean, summarizing it, I would say that in the beginning, the main mistake was to not have a proper plan, a proper let's say project plan in place in order to know what are the different steps you want to take, and in order to track your progress. And we were basically running around a little bit in all kinds of directions, in terms of finding clients, in terms of suppliers, in all kinds, and in terms of how to develop the product, and not having a clear path. And this obviously takes up a lot of resources and a lot of time, and you're just doing much slower progress. And for us, what really helped us getting on track, having a proper plan and a proper vision, which is very important as well. Which kind of goal do you want to achieve long term? Which can be, you can obviously change it, but you need to have kind of this North Star where you want to go, in order to have a proper direction. If you change it, then you properly change the direction of the company, which is fair enough. But if you don't have any kind of guiding principle, you also have no clue where you're heading, and you can also not change the direction, or as people call it, pivot your business model. So this is very crucial, and what helped us there was the accelerator. We participated in Mass Challenge here in Switzerland, which is regularly in the top 10 of globally of accelerator programs. And there we really got the right coaches and mentors and sessions in order to put in order to create the basis of the company, have a clear structure, a North Star where we want to go, and like this properly develop the company, and basically turn a project into a real company. This was for us very crucial in our development of Oxygen at Work.
What does such a North Star? What can it look like? Would you say, do you define? I mean, it's obviously different things you can define as a North Star, but would one example be you define the markets that you want to be in, or the number of customers, or revenue, or what would you say are some good examples that someone could put as a North Star?
Well, the North Star should not, in my opinion, should not be something that you can achieve. At least not in the short, like for sure not in the short and not in the medium term. But maybe it's something you as a company want to achieve in 10, 15 years time. So if you talk about markets or revenue or something, that would be a goal, and it's that you can achieve, and you can track how far along are you in reaching that goal. While the North Star, in my opinion, should be the guiding principle and the long term vision, what you want to create. So what's important for us is to create healthy indoor environments for human beings. And this is really the guiding principle, and it includes a lot of different things that we could incorporate into our business or not, and goes much further than providing plants and improving the energy consumption of a building. But it gives you a certain direction and a certain framework on which grounds you want to build your company.
Right, right, and it leaves a space open for other things as well. Very cool. So, what's one thing you did really well then?
Let's see. I would really say that the approach of how to develop the product worked out really well for us. There are obviously different theories and different approaches in how to develop a product and how to find the right market fit. But we were in the lucky position that plants were already standard inside office spaces, and in the beginning we could position ourselves as just as a one more supplier that is a little bit more innovative, let's say. And with that great starting point, we could really develop the product with the most honest and direct customer feedback you could get. While if you develop a product in your lab, which sometimes is obviously needed, biotech startups cannot go around and test their medicine before in their early stages, obviously. But I believe the longer you stay in the lab and do hypothetical or theoretical tests of your product and market fit, you will never get the real and honest feedback that you need.
Yeah, I so agree with you. This is it's really cool to see that you went this way, because you're trying to solve a real world need and not a lab need or problem. And you're getting so much feedback from customers on small details that in the end, add up and make your solution better than what's out there. My final question for you. So I ask a lot of different questions that I prepare, but sometimes, our guests want to talk about some other things that I couldn't cover or that I didn't cover. Is there any topic that we didn't cover in this conversation that you'd like to talk about, you believe to be important for aspiring entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs that are already working on their ideas?
Well, there's basically one message I always like to share, which is simply put, for entrepreneurs to always choose the sustainable option whenever they have to make a choice. I mean, we are in a business that is all about health and especially also sustainability. But there are many businesses as well that are not in the area of sustainability, which is perfectly fine. Not all businesses have to make the world more sustainable, but you will still each business will still always reach a point where they have to make decisions or choices between certain options, and you will always get the one that is in the short term very profitable, but most probably it's the one that is either socially or ecologically not the most sustainable one. And what proved for our business to be right was as well that the option that is long term socially and ecologically more sustainable is also long term more profitable for the business. And I mean, as a startup, you're in the lucky position that you're not stock exchange driven. You don't have to deliver each month and each quarter, but you can really take long-term decisions in order to put your company on good and stable grounds. So this leaves you also room to take decisions that might only play out more profitably in the long run. So this is something that I always preach, and that you should always go for the sustainable for the sustainable option or solution, not because it's the right thing to do. I mean, it also is the right thing to do, but also because most probably in most cases it will be long term also the most profitable one.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's such an important message. I talk about it with my startup co-founder as well. That go long term, think long term. Talk long term. So it's basically the same, right? Sustainability is about long term options. I think it's super important because what I feel is that big businesses and also people, humans, tend not to really think long term. We eat trash, and so long term our health is gonna decline because of that. But we enjoy it in the short term. We like that type of food, and so we eat it. So there's so many things that long term don't make sense, but that we still do. So I feel in my experience is that you really have to have that in the front of your head. Think long term, because there's always going to be people who ask you, why don't you take that project or that money or whatever. So I really love that you shared that. All right, well, that was it. A bit longer than expected. It was a very, very interesting story. Thanks so much for taking the time, sharing your insights, sharing your opinion and your experience with Oxygen at Work. Where can people reach you and reach the company?
Well, thank you, Daniel. It was a great conversation. Just you will find us everywhere on our website, oxygenatwork.org. We are on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Just reach out to me if you're interested in learning more or have other ideas. If you believe you can partner up with us in any way, or simply are interested in the solution, you will. It shouldn't be too hard to find us online.
Right. I love the name you chose. It's really straightforward. All right. Thank you so much, and have a great day, and all the best to everyone at Oxygen at Work.
Thank you. Same to you.
That was it. Thank you for listening to another episode of Startup Stories. Make sure to check out the show notes with additional links at nerdentrepreneurs.com. And if you like our podcast, leave a review on iTunes. Cheers!